the Israeli government has approved a 6-week ceasefire in Gaza. The first of 3 stages to the agreement is planned to begin on Sunday morning. That's when fighting in the Gaza Strip is set to stop at 8:30 a.m. local time. Israeli troops will then pull out of populated areas. Hamas is also set to begin releasing a total of 33 Israeli hostages, while Israel will free hundreds of Palestinian prisoners in return. Aid agencies are planning to surge vitally needed supplies into the besieged strip once the hostilities cease. And for more, let's cross over now to DW's Konstantin Eggert in Jerusalem. Konstantin, we heard the Israeli government has approved the ceasefire deal, but there was a long debate and the vote certainly was far from being unanimous. Do tell us more about it. Why did it take so long?
Well, indeed, Monica, the debate lasted until midnight, so probably it was about 7-8 hours that the government discussed it. And the contentious points are essentially the future security of Israel, the way the Gaza Strip will live after the deal is implemented, who is going to be controlling Gaza, whether Hamas's military capabilities are basically decreased enough for Israel to feel at least partially secure. It seems that these were the main points of debate. Plus, I would say that there was some opposition which was a bit unexpected. We do know that the far-right parties, representatives of the far-right parties in the cabinet were against the deal, but it seems like, according to the Israeli media, that even some members from Prime Minister Netanyahu's own Likud party were not satisfied with the deal and voted against it. That's what the media here says. So indeed, the debate was quite hot, and it seems that the issues are not fully resolved.
But for now, we do have the deal, which is to last 6 weeks, we heard. How much support does it have from the Israeli public?
Well, the Israeli public so far, according to opinion polls, was very much for the release of hostages, and this ensured a significant support for the deal. About 58%, according to the Israeli Democracy Institute poll, supported the deal fully, another 12 with, well, certain reservations. So we're talking about more than 2/3 so far. But of course, a lot, Monica, will depend on the way the deal is implemented and whether there are any basically problems along the way. That may swing the public opinion. But so far, I'd say that release of the hostages is the main priority for the Israeli public.
Yeah, how it's implemented. And of course, as I mentioned, so this deal paved the way for a 6-week pause. Will that ceasefire deal hold?
Well, that's the biggest question, because what is supposed to happen is that tomorrow, after the beginning of the ceasefire, which will start in the morning, maybe in the afternoon, early evening, there's going to be the release of the first sort of group of hostages. And the Palestinian prisoners, the list was published by the Israeli Justice Ministry, several hundred of them. So this is, for example, I'll give you an example. Hamas never released a list of who is alive and who is dead. So, for example, some of the hostages' families may discover that their relatives are dead, and they may get the bodies. That's what the media is writing here. And the second phase is withdrawal of the Israeli troops from the buffer zone. They are going to be in during the first stage. A return of the male hostages, and third stage is essentially full withdrawal and the beginning of reconstruction. I mean, that's the scheme. But along the way, there are going to be many, many potential crises, and this is how it looks from now. It's too many unknown elements there to say that it's going to sail through.
All right. Well, one step at a time then. Konstantin Eggert there in Jerusalem. Thank you so much, Konstantin. And I'm joined now by Mairav Zonszein. She's a senior analyst for Israel and the Palestinian territories at the International Crisis Group. And she's joining us now from Tel Aviv. Good to have you with us. Now, the toughest question first, perhaps. Do you think the ceasefire will hold?
Well, first, we'd like to see it come into effect tomorrow morning, and that will already be a huge relief. I think that the stakes against the ceasefire are quite high, primarily by the far right in Israel's coalition. Netanyahu has ministers who are absolutely against the ceasefire and are threatening to leave the coalition, and are also trying to get guarantees from him that they will resume the war after the first phase is implemented. Hamas, on its part, wants to make sure that it can survive and keep some of the hostages, so it could also find ways during the second phase to keep hostages and continue the negotiations in a phase 2 as well. So unfortunately, the ceasefire itself is very precarious, but obviously the U.S. and its role will be very, very important in trying to keep the ceasefire. And I'm hoping that Trump, because he's put so much political capital into clinching the deal, that he will also be involved in getting the deal to hold.
To hold for those 6 weeks, and you already mentioned...
and beyond.
And beyond would be ideal, of course. But you already mentioned the problems within the government there. And of course, the goal, as we know, of the Israeli government was to destroy Hamas. Now, that has not been achieved. Has Israel now, has the government given up that goal?
Ostensibly, it hasn't. And there's obviously a lot of criticism by the military and defense establishment, former officials, for Netanyahu and his coalition actually not speaking about a day after, not engaging with what could possibly be for future governance in Gaza. Obviously, the Palestinians would like to have a lifting of the siege of Gaza, an ability to unite the West Bank and Gaza and have political renewal. None of these things seem to be on the table. Netanyahu has consistently rejected any kind of Palestinian independence, a state, the Palestinian Authority in any kind of reformed version of taking over the Gaza Strip. So there actually is no strategy or day-after plan on the Israeli side. And unfortunately, I think every Israeli understands now, regardless of their feeling about Netanyahu or the war, that 15 months of military force and destruction have not done away with Hamas, certainly not in terms of its governing power in the Strip. So that remains completely outside the mechanism of the deal.
Yeah. And you also mentioned earlier that parts of the government threatened to basically walk out over this deal. Do you think this is actually going to happen? Is there a possibility that the current government in Israel could fall apart over this? And what would that mean for the overall situation?
So Netanyahu does face now a coalition crisis. I think to some level he might still be able to get through the first phase. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the far-right national security minister, had made a statement already that if the deal goes through, he's leaving. And the deal is going through, so we're waiting to see him leave. Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister and the de facto governor of the West Bank, who has done a lot of damage and really de facto annexation of the West Bank in the time that he's been minister, has a lot to lose from leaving the government. So I'm still not sure. His party has threatened. But it looks like he's trying to see how the first phase will go, and possibly if Israel doesn't resume the war after that, he would stay. So that's up in the air. But Netanyahu's coalition is definitely now in danger, and I think he's doing everything possible to stay in power. Because obviously, as we all know, if he loses his seat as prime minister, he risks going to jail for the corruption trial he's currently in.
All right. Mairav Zonszein of the International Crisis Group, thank you so very much for sharing your perspectives with us.
Thank you.